Yes, this is going to work. Awesome. Hi. My apologies if you were watching on the thing and I kind of went in and out. We have switched. Oh, problem is you can see my little... Well, that can't be helped. We're just going to have to deal with this. Okay, so as we're going through the events and everything else, please have a look through your family tree. Did anybody in your family tree actually participate in any of the events that we mentioned? Did they witness the events we're mentioning? Do any of the people we mentioned, were they actually in your family tree? So that's what we're about to discover. And we're going to discover what, let's see, fairy tales, poets, Pluto, work, comics. What's that one? That was the poetry one. And me all have in common today. Okay, so let's start. 10:06. The supernova was observed by Chinese and Egyptians in the constellation Lupus on this day in 10:06. How cool is that? I mean, that's kind of cool. And you wonder, did they see it with the naked eye? Did they have some sort of telescopic device? Because you remember seeing some historic movies and they put out this telescope and people are like, what the heck is that? And they look through it and you get all sorts of weird and wonderful reactions to it in movies and things. So, you know, how did they actually see it? That kind of intrigues me. In 1489, Christopher Columbus proposes his plan to search for a western route to India in an audience with Spanish monarch Isabella I, and full support is granted 3 years later. So he had to hang out for 3 years to figure it out. In 1704, Boston Newsletter published the first newspaper advertisement. 1704, that's how long they've been advertising in newspapers. 1753, now this is where I get all tongue-tied with all these names. Publications of Species Planetarium by Carolus Linnaeus, and the formal start date of plant taxonomy was adopted by the International Code of Botanical... I can't even read my writing on this. Nomenclature? It's basically that pyramid thingy, that upside down pyramid where you have species, species, genus, family, order, class, and the rest all the way up to the top. So for plants and animals and humans, they have that, you know, what animals are related, what have the common classes and that sort of stuff. So that's when that got published, 1753. That's how long that's been around. In 1776, Adam Weishaupt founds the secret society of the Illuminati. If it's a secret society, how do we know it was formed? Or founded? It's supposed to be a secret. In 1786, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's opera Marriage of Figaro premieres in Vienna with Mozart himself directing. Multi-talented individual. In 1822, John Phillips becomes the first mayor of Boston. In 1840, now this was really cool, and I actually kept the article up so I could read it, but now I'm not sure if I can with my phone in the way, but we'll give it a go. So in 1840, Black Penny, the world's first adhesive postage stamp, was issued by Great Britain, and it's really cool. It's black and it's got white printing on it with a young Queen Victoria on there. And I was reading the article about the Black Penny, and in 1837, it was normal for a recipient to pay postage on delivery, and they were charged by the sheet, so how many sheets of paper there were, and on the distance traveled, making the posting and receiving of a simple letter a complex affair. And they said to simplify things, Rowland Hill proposed an adhesive stamp to indicate prepayment of postage. The penny black and later other stamps allowed letters of up to half an ounce or 14 grams to be delivered regardless of the distance at a flat rate of 1 penny. The total print run of the Black Penny was 286,700 sheets for a total, and I didn't divide one in front of the other to figure out how many stamps were on them, but somebody can do the math, for a total of 68,808,000 stamps, and each of those 68,808,000 stamps that are still surviving are worth around £500 today. I thought that was kind of cool. Isn't that cool? Let's see, in 1848, the fraternity Pi Gamma Delta is founded at Jefferson College in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. In 1850, John Gary becomes the first mayor of San Francisco. This one cracked me up. This one I was laughing. I don't know why it just struck me as funny. But in 1851, the first I know why it cracked me up now. The first public flushing toilet, the Monkey Closet, was unveiled by George Jennings as part of the Great Exhibition in Hyde Park, London, costing 1 penny. That's how long flushing toilets have been around. All right, now for the fairy tales. Okay, can you figure out what fairy tales have to do with today? I will tell you in a moment. So Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm published the first part of their German dictionary. It was fully completed in 1961. I kid you not. And it's got here, and these are the same Grimm brothers as in Grimm's fairy tales. So here's our fairy tale connection. That was first published in 1812 with 86 stories. By their 7th edition in 1857, 211 stories were included. From the brothers' collecting of old folk tales has come popularity of such tales as Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Rapunzel, and Rumpelstiltskin. And then it says here about the dictionary. Together with his brother, so Jacob and Wilhelm was the instigator of the Mammoth Deutsch. My pronunciation is off today. Waterbach, the largest German dictionary ever completed, began in 1838. It was published in parts from 1852. Unfinished at their death, it was finally completed by later scholars in 1961. So that's our fairy tale connection for today, with the Grimm brothers writing the first part of starting the German dictionary. In 1863, Hospital for the Ruptured and Crippled first opens its doors in New York City, and it is the oldest orthopedic hospital in the United States. And I had a look, and it is still open today. There you go. 1866, American Equal Rights Association forms. Was that before? Was that during or after the Civil War? I don't remember what the Civil War dates were. In 1867, Howard University was chartered. So that's another institution that's been around for a long time, because I know people who have been to Howard University, and they tell me they had a lot of fun there. In 1873, the first United States postal card was issued. We now know them as postcards today. In 1884, construction begins on Chicago's first skyscraper. And their first skyscraper was all of 10 stories in 1884. On the same day in 1884, proclamation of the demand for 8-hour workday in the US. And there is like with the daylight savings thing we had, was it yesterday or the day before? The 8-hour workday and the 40-hour week. There's this huge spans across time talking about all of this. And then so that was in 1884. 2 years later, on the day, May 1st, 1886, U.S. general strike for 8-hour working day begins. I did not see how long, I could not find how long the strike lasted, but there was a strike exactly 2 years after the proclamation of the demand for the 8-hour workday. Exactly 2 years later, they went on strike for 8-hour working days. In 1889, the Second International Congress calls for the First International Workers' Day, 1st of May, 1890, to mark protests in Chicago in 1886. See, it's all kind of all around May 1st. In 1892, the U.S. quarantine station opens on Angel Island in San Francisco Bay. All right, now this one has a personal connection to me. In 1912, and you're sort of like, 1912, you're not that old. Correct. The Beverly Hills Hotel opens. And you're probably going, 1912 Beverly Hills Hotel. Have you stayed there? No. I actually went to the Beverly Hills Hotel Spa on the 28th of December 1998, and my very dear friend Rhonda was with me, and I got my hair, makeup, and nails done for my wedding in the spa at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And partway through all of these treatments and everything else, we went and we had this, I walk into the restaurant, all I'm wearing is I was wearing jeans and a robe into this restaurant where we sat and had lunch. And then went back and finished getting organised and getting made up and all of that sort of stuff. I think my hair might have been in rollers. I can't remember. I think it might have been in rollers. But they teased my hair, and I had long hair. You can't see it because I haven't got it down. A little longer than what I have it now. And they teased my hair, and I kid you not, it was like this around my head. And Rhonda caught this awesome picture of it on that day with this halo of hair. So that's my connection. That's the first of two on this day in history. So 1912 Beverly Hills Hotel was where I went to get hair and makeup done on December 28th, 1998. In 1927, the first British airliner, Imperial Airways, served cooked meals. Cooked meals in 1927. Go figure. And now, Pluto. In 1930, the planet Pluto is officially named by 11-year-old Venetia Burney. She was a little girl in England, and she had the privilege of naming the planet Pluto. There's your Pluto connection. In 1931, the Empire State Building opens in New York City. That's been around a little while. In 1936, FBI's J. Edgar Hoover arrested gangster Alvin Creepy Karpis. Like, yeah, you kind of get the shivers talking about mobsters and gangsters and stuff. On this day in 1939, here comes our comic connection, Batman first appears in Detective Comics number 27. Ooh, here comes our cereal connection. In 1941, General Mills introduces Cherry Oats, now renamed Cheerios in 1945, on an oat-based, ready-to-eat cold cereal. Oh, excuse me. I didn't have cold cereals back then. It was all hot-cooked breakfasts. In 1940s, that was in 1941. They'd be a little stale now, wouldn't they? In 1947, radar for commercial and private planes was first demonstrated. And poetry. In 1950, Gwendolyn Brooks is the first African American awarded the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. On that same day, Rodgers and Hammerstein were awarded the Pulitzer Prize for the musical South Pacific. Now that's one musical I haven't seen. I've seen a clip of Gonna Wash That Man Right Out of My Head. In 1952, TWA introduces tourist class, which we now know today as economy or cattle class, whatever you want to call it. In 1955, oh no, this picture was hilarious. Wish I could show it to you, but I can't. In 1955, showgirl Linda Lawson is crowned Miss Q, MISS-CUE, in the atomic pageant. After Operation Q test is repeatedly delayed in high winds, her crown was a mushroom cloud. And it's really funny. She's standing there surrounded by about 7 or 8 servicemen, and she's got this zigzag wire piece, and then there's like this mushroom cloud coming up. Oops. Quite tall, and I think one of the guys behind her is actually trying to hold it on her head or something. But she was called Miss Q since they hadn't been able to do their tests. And the pageant ran for 4 years in Vegas. I think it was 4 years. And so moving forward to 1957, Larry King had his first radio broadcast. He'd been on the airways a long time. Now we've got another one about work. Remember all that stuff back in Chicago when was it? In the late 1800s in Chicago about 8-day workday hours and all of that? Well, in 1959, West Germany introduced the 5-day work week. I told you it was played, yeah. So 1959, that's how long we've had 5-day work weeks around. In 1963, the first American, James Whittaker, conquers Mount Everest. In 1964, the first BASIC program runs on a computer. And BASIC, if I remember correctly, is what they use for Apple, the Apple computers, or they used to use it for Apple computers and Commodore 64s, because that's what I learned to program in. In 1966, the last British concert by the Beatles at the Empire was at the Empire Pool in Wembley. In 1970, railroads. Yes, we had that one in there somewhere along the way too. In 1971, Amtrak Railroad begins operation. So they've only been around since 71. I thought they'd been around a lot longer. In 1970, this is for the Disney fans. In 1976, Empress Lily, the replica of the paddle steamer, was dedicated at Walt Disney World in Florida. My apologies. In 1979, Elton John becomes the first pop star to perform in Israel. Did you have any relatives in your tree that were at that concert? Wouldn't that have been cool? In 1984, now this is a personal one, it was on this day in 1984 that I was sworn into the Royal New Zealand Air Force at the General Service Training School at the RNZAF base of Woodburn. And so began my almost 6-year career with the Royal New Zealand Air Force, just as we were going into winter. Yes, that made it even more fun. Another one for the Disney fans. In 1989, 135-acre Disney's MGM Studio theme park officially opens to the public at Lake Buena Vista in Florida. And our very last one for today, and when you hear, and it only happened a couple of years ago, but it only happened 2 years ago today, but when you hear why, you'll understand. New York City officially names a street Sesame Street at the intersection of West 63rd Street and Broadway in honor of the show's 50th anniversary, which it actually started first, and Sesame Street first aired on November the 10th, 1969. So that's our day, that's May 1st, just a small recap of all the things that have happened on May 1st over the years. Do you have any relatives do you have anybody in your family tree that may have been at any of those events, may have witnessed them, may have participated, like in the building of the Empire State Building? Do you have somebody in your tree that worked construction for the Empire State Building? Do you have somebody in your tree who may have been one of the first people to go up to the top of the Empire State Building? Do you have any of the people that we mentioned in today's Today in History actually in your family tree? It's a lot of fun trying to find these things out and digging around and going exploring. And one reason I love doing it, I love genealogy and exploring people's past, is seeing if there is connections to events in history, if there's connections to people in history, because now you have a personal connection to that time in history and it makes it come more alive for you. It could be that your great-great-grandfather may have been on one of the ones from 1940. He could have been working at General Mills when they came out with Cheerios. He could have, you might have had a grandfather who maybe read the Batman comics. You never know. When that first one came out, the number 27. May have had somebody who working on that. You may have been around, what connections do you have to these events and these places in history through your family tree? If you would like help discovering these things or just want some hints and tips, you can have a free consultation call. Just go to helenconnects.com and you'll be able to set up a time for us to have a chat. That's it from us for today for May 1st. Go have a super fantastic sparkling day and we'll catch you guys later. Hei konera.